responsibility. This is a lecture for my 5th hour class on the 17th of April. Well, when we left off, we were moving toward the actual event that caused World War I by the outbreak of World War I. By 1914, every major nation, and when I'm not talking about Bulgaria, I'm not talking about Belgium, I'm not talking about some tiny country. When I say major countries, I'm talking about the Russians and the Germans and Austria and the Ottomans and France and Great Britain, the British Isles. But every one of these major countries were involved in an alliance. And they were all heavily armed, and they were all adding to their arms. They were all in an imperial race. They all wanted to be number one. They figured the way to do that was to have an empire. And once you get an empire, you have to defend it. So you need a lot of ships and you need a lot of armies. Europe was armed to the teeth. In fact, I've read one historian who said that in 1914, Europe was a ticking time bomb. One little incident, and all these alliances kick in, and Europe, which had been at peace for 100 years, all of a sudden, every major nation in Europe is marching to war. And in June of 1914, that is exactly what happened. I've just described to you, but now I want to describe to you the incident that caused the alliances to kick in. As you know, there were two great empires interested in taking the Balkan Peninsula. Russia, which was landlocked, Austria, which was almost landlocked. They wanted access to the sea. And with that goal in mind, Austria in 1908 had taken Bosnia. Now I'm going to switch maps. We're going to do a close-up of the Balkan Peninsula, but as you're looking at that close-up, keep in mind where it is in relation to Russia and Germany and France and so forth. But there it is. There's Bosnia right there. Where my hand is, there's Bosnia. And in 1908, the Austro-Hungarians took it as the first step, really what they're doing, the first step to take this whole peninsula, so again, they can have access to the sea. I've got a big B covering that there, and I didn't think you could see it as plainly. But anyway, Austria took that. And of course, the reaction wasn't good. Several different groups formed in Bosnia, and they start killing Austrian officials. When Austria takes Bosnia, well, they send a governor down there, and they send soldiers down there to protect the governor. There are all sorts of bureaucrats they send down there to run this part of their empire, and these Bosnians start killing them. Of course, the Bosnians that are killing the Austrians, to the Austrian people, they're heroes. But of course, to the Austrians, they're terrorists, okay? So, there's an old saying, one man's hero is another, one man's terrorist is another man's hero. It's hard for us to imagine, looking at it from our side of the coin, that the 19 young Saudi Arabians who flew those planes into the World Trade Center and killed thousands of people, to us, they're the lowest of the low. They're low, despicable terrorists, but to much of the world, they're heroic in the Middle East, who resent the United States having military bases in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan and all over the Middle East. And to many people, those 19 people are martyrs. They are people who died for a holy cause to get the United States. It's hard for us to imagine, but one man's terrorist is another man's hero. So there are several groups down there in Bosnia who start killing Austrians. Get this down. They, if you don't have it down, they start blowing up troop trains, assassinating Austrian officials. Can you think of another group of revolutionaries who were trying to get somebody, we talked about this year, who were trying to get somebody out of their country, and they resorted to assassinations and blowing up troop trains? Afghanistan? No, well, in Afghanistan that happened, but I'm talking about earlier than World War I that we talked about. Spanish-American War. Who was very good. Who were those guys? What were those guys in Cuba called? Who wanted to get the Spanish out of Cuba? Started burning sugarcane and tobacco.
Insurrectos.
Excellent. The Insurrectos. You're the first one that's gotten that today. Good catch, both of you. The Insurrectos, okay? Well, these guys are a European or a Bosnian version, I guess I should say, of the Insurrectos, okay? So Austria, my point is this. By 1914, Austria was having problems down in their newly acquired colony, Bosnia. The ruler of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and remember you have a quiz tomorrow, the ruler was a 90-year-old man named Franz Joseph. Okay, he's 90 years old. 90. Look at this. He's the ruler of this large empire right in the heart of Europe. 90. What do you think his favorite hobby was at 90 years old?
Chess.
Huh?
Chess.
Chess. Sitting in a chair drooling on himself. He hunted hogs. He hunted wild hogs on horseback. 90 years old. And he was good at it. He literally could drop the reins over the neck of the horse at a full gallop and raise a right and shoot a hog. Most people don't do that when they're 90. Most people don't ever do that, but certainly when they're 90 anyway. That's not important. That's just interesting to me. Well, he's 90, so he outlived all of his children, and he had to have a successor. Get this down. He had to have someone to take his place when he died. So he didn't have any children left. They were all dead. His brother, however, had a son. And this son was in his 60s. He was the nephew of Franz Joseph, and he was next in line to rule Austria when Franz Joseph died. And his name was, or his title was, since he was next in line. You know, this guy is the emperor, the king, if you will. And when the king dies, this guy's going to take over. But until he took over, his title, that's his title. That's not his name. The Archduke, Francis Ferdinand. Write him down, Francis Ferdinand. Got it? And so, you know, with Austria having trouble down in Bosnia, in June, in fact, write this date down, June 20th, this is the date I want you to remember, June 28, 1914, because that's the day the incident that started the First World War happened, June 28, 1914. Anyway, Franz Joseph wanted his nephew, the next ruler of Austria, he's the future. Franz Joseph wanted his nephew to go down to the capital city of Bosnia. And the capital city of Bosnia, and by the way, I will ask you this tomorrow, and some of you will put Paris, but that's the city where the incident that started World War I began, okay? Sarajevo in Bosnia, okay? It's the capital city of Bosnia. So anyway, with all these problems happening down there in Bosnia, Franz Joseph wanted his nephew, his successor, the guy that was next in line for the Austrian throne, to go down to Sarajevo and just sort of go on a goodwill tour. Sit in a car and drive down the streets and wave to the people and try and show the Bosnians that the Austrians, you know, were not the devil. And, you know, they really weren't that bad off being part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And so that's what Franz Joseph did. But before he went down there, before he got on the train here in Vienna and headed down to Bosnia on this goodwill tour, he called the Austrian governor of Bosnia, and he said, how are things down there in Bosnia? I mean, is it dangerous? Is it safe? Because my wife wants to come with me, and I would like to bring my wife, Sophie, with me. Is it safe enough for me to bring the wife? And the Austrian official down there said, perfect. Everything's calm down here. We're not having any problems. You both come on down. And so with that, Archduke Ferdinand gets on a train in Vienna here, and he goes with his wife down to Sarajevo. And there he is, and there's his wife. What he was supposed to do was get off the train, get in the car, go down to the middle of the city, and he was going to lay a wreath on the tomb of the Bosnian, are you with me? The Bosnian unknown soldier. He's trying to smooth things over between Bosnia and Austria. And then he was going to make a short little comment. And then he was going to get in his car, and he was going to go back, and again, wait for all the people, and get on the train and go back to Austria. Pretty simple operation, they thought. So there he is. He's just gotten off the train. He's gotten in his car. It's going to take him to downtown Sarajevo. He's going right into the heart of the city. There's the Austrian governor of Bosnia shaking hands with the Archduke. And by the way, there's the car they rented. It's a long touring car. And they're going to be, the Archduke and his wife are sitting back here in this car. And they head down to the heart of the city. They did not know, get this down, the Archduke and his wife did not know that that day a Bosnian terrorist group, a group of Bosnians who are fighting to get the Austrians out of their country, called, did we do the Black Hand the other day? We'll do it now. The Black Hand, the group of Bosnians, the Black Hand, and along the Archduke's parade route, look, here goes his car down this winding road, okay, and thousands of people are lined up on the side, but the Black Hand had stationed 6 of their men along the parade route to kill him. And of course, obviously, they didn't know that. And the Archduke is in that car, and here comes this rather long car, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cavalrymen, horse soldiers escorting him. And his car is moving at about 8 miles an hour. When you drive home out of the parking lot today, just drive to the gate here, 8 miles an hour, it will drive you to distraction. I mean, he's just going slow, but he's sitting there, and he's not waving. Royalty doesn't wave in those days. He's just staring straight ahead with his wife beside him in the back of that car. And here they come down the street. They're going down here to the heart of the city for him to do his little ceremony. And they passed the first assassin. And he had a bomb, like a bowling ball. And, you know, when the car gets about here to maybe that filing cabinet over there, he just rolls the bomb like a bowling ball. And it comes like this. And it hit the bumper of the car and fell back, popped up and fell back in the middle of these horses and exploded. Didn't hurt the Archduke, but it killed and wounded some of those soldiers escorting him, and it hurt their horses. And of course, the car stopped, and the Archduke stood up. I mean, he's really a nice guy. He stood up and he watched them, you know, remove these men who had been wounded and killed, trying to defend him and their dead horses. And everybody's kind of startled, but he sort of straightens his hat. He sits back down, and they continue down the street. This assassin, by the way, just as soon as he rolled the bomb, the policeman saw him, and a group of policemen just dogpiled him. They drag him off, kicking and screaming. And the word spreads to these other assassins that the assassination attempt had failed, and one of their number had been arrested. And so they called the plot off. Everybody went home. They said, we'll try and kill some Austrian another day. So they all go home. Meanwhile, the Archduke gets to the heart of the city. He places the wreath on the tomb of the unknown Bosnian soldier. And then he makes this little address. He makes this little speech. And then he gets back in his car and they head to the train station. And everything seems like a success, all things considered. However, I've told you many times that you know, the more I study history, the more amazed I am at the little things that influence great events. Because on the way back to the train station, the Archduke asked his driver, who, by the way, was not a Bosnian, he was an Austrian, so he didn't know the city. He asked him, you know, do you know where the hospital is where they're treating these men who were wounded, trying to protect me? And of course, the driver, I mean, he's got the cushiest job in the world, driving around the future emperor. You don't want to say, oh, no, gee, I don't have a clue. They might get a new. He says, sure, I know where it is. And so they take off there, and the guy doesn't know really where he's going. But they come to a, corner here. Here comes the Archduke's car. The hospital is down here. This is a dead end. And I mean, that's literally a brick wall there. Yeah, the car's coming down here. And instead of taking, this made all the difference. Instead of taking a right turn, the guy's lost. And he's out in traffic, and there are pedestrians out there. There are people driving herds of goats. There are trolley cars. There are cars. There's ox carts. People are just jammed on this street. The driver's trying to make it through as best he can, and he just made a mistake. He turned left instead of going right, and he ended up in this dead-end alley. Right over here is a sandwich shop. And this guy is in, by the way, there's the spot right there. Okay. He should have gone over that, and instead he turned back here. Okay. Hospital's over here. Anyway, that you want to know, you want to see the spot where the incident began that started World War I. That's it. Mr. Lenz dad was a captain in the U.S. Army, and he sent me a picture when he was over in Bosnia of him standing there with the, hey, Mr. Thompson, we did this in class. This is where Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. Yeah, standing right there. Anyway, there it is. Anyway, there's a sandwich shop on the corner, and this guy, you don't have to write him down, but he's pretty important. This guy, Gavrilo Princip, are any of you 17 years old? Anybody? He's your age, okay? What does your resume look like now? Is it that thick?
No.
No, because you haven't lived long enough to do much. Same as mine. That's better than mine when I was 17. You know what this guy could put in his resume? Age 17, started World War I. That's pretty impressive. Started World War I. He was one of the 6, and when they called off the assassination, he just went walking home. Well, he lived here in an apartment, and he's just walking home. And he stops in the sandwich shop. He's hungry to get a sandwich, and he is leaning back on the counter, just watching traffic go back and forth and people walk by. When all of a sudden, he glances off to his left, and what's happening here? This long car is trying to back out into this traffic, and it's a standard. If you drive a standard, foot slipping off the clutch, it's starting, stop, starting, stop. Plus, the driver can't see. That's a long car, and he doesn't, he's got the future emperor of Austria sitting right over his shoulder. He doesn't want anything to happen, and he's just easing out and easing out. And here's the guy, one of the guys that was supposed to kill the Archduke, and all of a sudden the Archduke appears about right over there where those lockers are, outside this room. And so Gavrilo Princip here just simply pulls a pistol out of his coat, and he walks over, get this down, walks over, and he shot Archduke Ferdinand and his wife, killed him, emptied his pistol on them, shot 6 times, killed them both. Doesn't look too impressive, does he? For starting World War I. There he is. There's the Archduke and his wife in their coffins back in Austria. Okay. Are you with me so far? Yes. Okay. So, what's the reaction to Austria to this? It's kind of like if our vice president went somewhere and, God forbid, some terrorist group killed her. What would we be talking about in this country? War. So what are the Austrians talking about?
War.
War. Yes, too. Bosnia. Is that the real reason? Because they're ticked off that their Archduke got shot? How many Archdukes you reckon they got in Austria?
About 5
Oh, about 10,000. Yeah. Look, get this down. The Austrians, here's a word for you. The Austrians feigned. That means pretended to be angry about, you with me, the assassination, but they weren't mad about it. In fact, they were secretly happy. Why are they so happy?
It gave them a reason to get into
You gave them a reason to do what?
Get into war.
Get in a war to do what? You're exactly right.
Take
Excellent. Take the Balkan Peninsula. You with me?
Yes.
They're not going to stop in Bosnia. Oh, they're going to go there and take care of those damn terrorists. But this is it. This is what they've been looking for. Now we're going to take the whole peninsula and we'll finally have access to the sea. Is that what they said?
No.
That's their motive, right? What's it called when you present a false motive? You're presenting what is called a what? Get this down. An ulterior motive. An ulterior motive. And I want you to write this down if you want to know why World War I started. It's a war of ulterior motives. Ulterior motives. They're hiding, listen to me, they're hiding the real reason. They're hiding the real reason that they're going to go to war. Oh, they act angry, but they're actually delighted that this stupid Archduke went down and got his head shot off. So now they've got an excuse to invade and march all the way to the sea, and that's what they want. And you know what? They gave Bosnia, little Bosnia, they gave Bosnia a ultimatum. They said, you got to do get this down. You got to do the following things by, in I think it was 24 hours. It might have been 48. And I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to go through one of them. In other words, they just said you have to completely surrender to us. You've got to just turn over your country officially to us. And did they? And what did the Bosnians do?
Say no.
Said no. What do the Austrians think about that?
Or,
Well, I mean, are they happy, sad, or indifferent?
yeah.
They're delighted. In fact, they made that ultimatum so severe they knew the Bosnians would never go along with it. And so now they've got the excuse they want. And just before, get this down, just before Austria, look at that, big Austria here invades the Balkan Peninsula. They said, you know, this is going to be a cakewalk. We're going to smash through there and take the whole thing. But just in case, get this down, just in case, you know, these little things once in a while spin out of control. Just in case this turns into a real war. I mean, it could turn into a big war. It won't, but we're going to check with our strongest ally to make sure we've got their backing. And who is Austria's strongest ally?
Germany.
Germany, very good. Write that down. They said, we're going to check. We're going to tell the Germans that we're about to invade. And we just want to know, or no, they didn't say anything, sorry. They said, we're going to tell the Germans that we're going to settle this matter. They've killed our Archduke, and we're going to settle this matter with Bosnia, and we just want to know if we have the backing of Germany. Well, get this man down. Look at that stash. That's, write him down. That's the ruler of Germany at the time. That's Queen Victoria's grandson, by the way. Remember Queen Victoria? Yeah, that's her grandson. His name was Wilhelm II. Wilhelm II of Germany. Wilhelm, that's William. He was the Kaiser of Germany. That comes from Julius Caesar. Okay, the great Roman emperor. They all tried to model after him. The Kaiser, that's German for Caesar. Wilhelm II. Okay, and he's the leader of Germany. All right. And when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, go back here. When Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, the Kaiser was up here about to get on the royal yacht and go sailing off through the North Sea. He was going to head off on vacation. And he gets word that something's happened down here in Bosnia, and Austria's ticked off about that. And Austria, his ally, demands satisfaction, and they're going to do something. And they hand him this hastily written message, will you back us? And he says, get this down. And Germany says, yes, whatever you do, get this down, whatever you do, we will back you. And of course, what is the last thing that he expected them to do?
War.
Go to war, because he knows if Austria goes to war against Bosnia, what's going to happen?
Whole world's gonna go.
All these alliances that we've talked about are going to kick in, and all of Europe will go to war and be destroyed. But he says it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You know, to update this, Vladimir Putin has invaded the Ukraine, and he's talked about using nuclear weapons. Are we out in the backyard with shovels digging a bomb shelter? No, because we know what. He's not going to do that. We hope. No, he's not. Because if he did that, that would unleash a war that would destroy the world. And that's what these very guys are thinking. They don't have nuclear weapons, but that's what these guys are thinking right now. And so the Kaiser says, yeah, whatever you do, we'll back you. He gets on the yacht and goes. And now Austria, by the way, who has the backing of the most powerful nation on Europe, what do? They invaded, get this down, they invaded Bosnia. The first shots of World War I, get this down, the first shots of World War I weren't fired in Germany or France or Russia or England, fired in a little place called Bosnia. And the next morning, when it made the world newspapers, people read there was a war going on in Bosnia, out in Kansas. People read there's a war going on in Bosnia. They had to get their atlas out and look up where the heck is Bosnia. Nobody had ever heard of it. But that's where the first shots of World War I, were fired. And when the war starts, get this down quickly. When the war starts, they flash word to the Kaiser out there in the North Sea. And remember, he is He is the leader of the most powerful nation on the European continent. They flash word out there to him that war has started. And what does he do? He turns that royal yacht around. He heads back. He lands here in Germany. He gets on his train heading for Berlin. He's thinking, I have got to stop this war before it destroys Europe. Get this down. And when he gets to the royal palace in Berlin, which is the capital of Germany, when he gets to the royal palace in Berlin, his generals are waiting on him. His generals are waiting. And by the way, his generals want war. They want war. Why do they want to go to war? Why do the Germans want to go to war? They've got an ulterior motive too. Why do the Germans want to go to war?
To take over.
What?
To,
Who do they want to finish off? Let's cut to the chase here. They're going to use this war as an excuse. You know, Austria's using this war as an excuse to get access to the sea. Germans want to use this war to do what?
France.
They want, excellent. Write that down. I want you to write these ulterior motives down. The German generals are just saying, well, we've got to back our allies, but in their minds, they say, get this down. We're going to take France out here. That's Germany. All these countries have ulterior motives. We're going to take Germany. Excuse me. We're going to take France out of here. Finish them off. Didn't they beat them back in 1871? In 6 months. We'll just smash them again, and this time we'll never have to worry about France again. That's Germany's ulterior. But is that what Germany says? No. What does Germany say? We got because we signed a treaty saying we do it. And the Kaiser says we got to stop this war. And they said, Your Majesty, we can't do that. It would be dishonorable. It would be cowardly. They might have even said to him, it would be unmanly for you to do that. A real man stands by his word. Because look, here we go again with the little things that influence Ray Events. Look at that picture of him. He's holding a helmet, but he's got all those feathers in front of that left arm. Look at that. Left arm, that's the painting. That left arm's back in the shadows. The Kaiser had a withered arm. It was a physical deformity. And the people at that time believed that their rulers were appointed by God. It's called the divine right of kings. God appointed Wilhelm. God literally put Wilhelm in his mother's womb to be the ruler of Germany. And if he had this physical handicap, defect, okay, small arm, withered arm, in his mind, and this is just in his mind, but in his mind, God would not have given that to him. So, he's super sensitive about that. And he couldn't, for example, he's the warlord of Germany. Warlords have to get on horses occasionally. He couldn't get on a horse by himself. He couldn't reach up and grab the saddle horn and the back of it and swing himself up. So, when he had to ride a horse at a public function, they would bring him in a car and he would wave to the people, and then they would take him in the courtyard where his horse was, and they would shut the gates behind him where the public couldn't see, and then he would get out and they would roll out a little portable staircase, and he could walk up and sit on his horse, and then he would wear these big oversized gloves, and then they would open the gates and he would ride out. Sit up, ma'am. He would ride out and, give the impression that, I'm the warlord, I got on this horse. So he's super sensitive about that. Some historians have said he did not feel like a whole man because of this physical deformity. And so they play on that. And they tell him, we have got to. It's kind of like, they didn't say this, but they meant this. It's kind of like a real man would stand by his word to the Austrians. And so get this down. Germany declares war on Bosnia. Well, what do the Bosnians do at this point? Look at this. There's little Bosnia. These two great empires have declared war on them. Look. Listen. If you look at the ethnicity, the ethnic background of most Europeans, you know what ethnicity is? Your race, okay? Europe is roughly divided like this. You've got Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Western Europeans are largely descended from Germans. They are Germanic people. The West, the British, the French, the Germans, Western Europe, come from the Anglo-Saxons. They're often called Saxons, okay, Saxons. But Eastern Europeans, starting about midway here in Austro-Hungary, including Russia, Bulgaria, these are descended from a ancient tribe of people called Slavic people. You understand what I'm saying to you? You understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah. Well, which group were the Bosnians part of? Slavic. And so with these two big Saxon empires attacking them, who did they call on for help?
The Anglos.
Huh? Move your fingers from the front of your mouth. You people mumble. You don't talk. Go ahead. Speak up.
Saxons.
Huh?
Saxons.
Well, which country? No, they're Slavs. Saxons are attacking them, so they wouldn't call on Slavs to help them, or the Saxons to help them. Which Slavic nation do they call on to help them?
Bulgaria.
Well, that's a little tiny country. What major power?
Russia.
Russia, yes. People have an obsession with these. When we're talking about major powers, these are the major powers. But anyway, back to what I was saying. These two Saxon nations invade this little Slavic nation, and they call on the most powerful Slavic nation in the neighborhood. It's not Romania, it's Russia, right? And do the Russians come to their aid?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Russia now declares war. Germany and Austria have declared war on Bosnia, and now Russia declares war on Germany and Austria. And what does Germany say? Listen, what does Germany say? Why do they say they're coming to this war?
France.
No.
They're backing Austria.
Austria just invaded Bosnia. Bosnia's calling on Russia to come help them against Austria. So why what do the Russians say? Why do the Russians say they're coming into this war?
Help their ally.
To help who?
Their ally.
Who's their ally here?
Bosnia,
Bosnia. Why is Bosnia their ally?
because they're all Slavs.
They're all Slavs. You with me? Russia says, hey, we're coming in here to help our fellow Slavs against these Saxon nations. Is that the real reason Russia is coming in there? Well, why is Russia coming in there? That's their excuse to do what?
Take over Germany.
No. Not their reason to take over Germany. What has Russia wanted for 600 years?
To destroy Austria.
What? No.
To be
Huh?
the most powerful.
Well, they certainly want to do that, but what have they wanted? What has their goal been? Why are the Austrians invading here? To get what?
The peninsula,
What? That peninsula, so they will have access to what?
the sea,
The sea. What have the Russians wanted for 600 years?
access.
Access to the sea. And so what do they say? They say we're going to come help our fellow Slavs, but in reality, that's their excuse to do what?
Get to the Balkan Peninsula.
Get the Balkan Peninsula and get access to the sea. It's an ulterior motive. You understand that? Yes? Yes? Okay. So get this down. Russia declares war on Germany and Austria. And then what happens?
France joins.
France does what? France declares war on
Austria and Germany.
the Austro-Hungarians and Germany. And then what happens? The Austro-Hungarians and Germany declare war on France. And then what happens? By the way, France, why do they get into this? What's their ulterior motive? What do they want to do?
Get back to Germany.
They want to destroy Germany. They want to destroy Germany. Get that down. That's their ulterior, They say, oh, we're just going to help our Russian ally, but they don't give a hang about the Russians. They want to get Germany. By the way, what about Bosnia? What's their ulterior motive here? Here they are taking on these two great empires, they want Russian boys to come in here and defeat their enemies for them. That's their ulterior motive. We're calling on Russia as our fellow Slavs. They don't give a hang about Russia. They want Russia to come in and do the fighting and dying for them. And then finally, get this down, there's England. Write this down very quickly. England, the most powerful nation on earth. And England just hangs back. Get this down. England just hangs back. They just watch this. And by the way, this war is going to destroy all these countries. I want you to write this down. It is a war of choice. None of them had to fight. It's a war of choice. They all chose to for an ulterior motive. But England hangs back till the very end. Well, get this down. The Germans, very quickly here. The Germans, as soon as they declare war, they moved to win it. I'm out of time. The Germans moved to win it. Look, the Germans have their eye on England. England has it. England's sitting over there in splendid isolation. England, they're watching this whole mess take place, and England's just hanging back. Germany says, we've got to win this war before England can get involved. And they had a plan. Get this down. They had a plan to win the war in 42 days. They've had that plan for 25 years. For 25 years. They had it on the drawing board. If we ever go to war with France again, we're going to win the war in 25 days. What the Germans say is we're going to knock the French out and win this war before one British soldier can cross the English Channel. But remember, England hasn't declared war yet. And the name of that plan the Germans have is called the von Schlieffen Plan. That's not German enough for you. The von Schlieffen Plan. That's their plan. And when I come back tomorrow, or when we come back tomorrow, we will take it up with the von Schlieffen Plan and go on with the war. Let me ask you something. Do you understand all these ulterior motives?
Yes.
Don't just say yeah because you're ready to bail out of here like rats on a sinking ship. This is your education. You understand? Everybody's putting up one motive. This is why we're going to war, but it's completely false. It's completely false. Well, we'll see England's ulterior motive tomorrow. And hold it just a second. And by the way, who are we leaving out of this whole thing? Huh? Well, yeah, I mean, think about that, huh?
Italy.
Italy. They're all going to get in, don't worry.
Good day.
Inside.